Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about Saudi Arabia. Now, according to information we have, Russia and US negotiations in Riyadh have ended. They lasted more than 12 hours, RIA Novosti correspondent reports. Furthermore, according to information we have, a joint statement from Russia and US following the talks in Riyadh will be published tomorrow. That was stated yesterday on the 24th of March of 2025, but yet we haven't received even a single nothing. We haven't received any joint statement from the Russian Federation and from the United States of America, and more likely these statements will be made first of all by the Sergei Lavrov. For example, today we got report that Sergei Lavrov, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, will talk about aspects of the negotiations in Riyadh in a television interview on March 25. So today we are waiting for this interview, and most likely today he will provide us lots of details about that negotiation process that took place more than 12 hours. Obviously the sides managed to discuss lots of things. In this video we can see how the Russian delegation left the negotiating site with the US in Riyadh. Another important thing is that Zelensky and his team, before the end of talks between the Russian Federation and the United States of America, start blaming and attacking the special envoy and the special representative Witkov, that he is working for Kremlin, that he is Putin agent. And you know that Steve Witkov is not the only representative of the United States of America who been attacked by different sources. Now we see that Zelensky and Ukrainians and basically Europeans are trying to replace Witkov for someone else who will probably stand for the European position and the position of Ukraine. And today we got another report, another scandal that took place in the United States of America. Trump advisor was accidentally added Atlantic journalist to secret military signal chat. That was stated by the Atlantic. Defense Secretary Hexat shared details about US strikes on Yemen the hours before they began, including precise information on weapons, targets, and the timing. At first the journalist thought it was a prank, but 2 hours later the US launched its attack on Yemen. So we see that two very strong representatives of the United States of America, of Donald Trump, are being attacked by different sources, and obviously we can see that this is something like most likely someone's special operation, maybe European special operation, maybe Ukrainian special operation, with the purpose to attack Trump himself and to remove very strong people from his cabinet. Anyway, let's wait and see what is going to be next, but obviously we believe that the United States of America will be forced to react on these two cases, and probably one of the special representatives would be removed by Trump. Steve Witkov is a great guy doing an incredible job. The people sniping at him are mad that he is succeeding where they are failed for 40 years. We see that, for example, JD Vance tried to protect Steve Witkov, but as for now we haven't received anything. Let's say that anybody tried to protect the Walls, Mike Walls. During the negotiation process, the United States of America was sharing with us about some details about the process of talks between the Russian and the US delegations. And for example, we know for sure that yesterday during the talks, US-Ukraine rare earth metals deal agreed. That was stated by Trump. We have a rare earth metals deal. We will sign it soon. We are talking about territory now. And the second question that was discussed during the 12-hour talks is the territory issue, and most likely the sides, both the Russians and the United States of America, managed to find a solution. And according to information we have, during those 12 hours talks, the Russians demanded to include the territories of Dnipro, of Zaporozhye, of Kherson, of Donetsk, and of Lugansk as a part of the Russian Federation. Russia demands withdrawal of Ukraine armed forces from Donetsk, Zaporozhye, and Kherson regions in talks with the US, the Moscow Times. So we see that maybe today we're going to receive lots of very interesting statements from Lavrov, and probably a joint statement of US-Russian delegations are going to be very interesting. Now let's talk about the situation on the ground, and we have lots of very interesting updates that are coming from the Suja direction. According to information we have, during the previous 12 hours, the Russians managed to improve their positions, and indeed the Russians, as a result of offensive operation, entered another village along the border with Ukraine. We are talking about small settlement by the name of Vodolahi. Currently there are very heavy clashes. Furthermore, different pro-Russian resources that the Russians crossed the border at another point, and currently there are very heavy clashes for the settlement of Veselovka. Furthermore, we received first geolocation that confirm the Russian presence in this area. In this video we can see how the Ukrainians were after withdrawing the Russians in the vicinity of the settlement by the name of Zhuravka. So we see that the Russians launched full-scale offensive operation through at least through 4 settlements. The settlement of Volodymyrovka, we got reports about the Russian advance in this area yesterday, through the village of Vodolahi, through the village of Veselovka, and through the village of Zhuravka. And we see that the Russians most likely will try to establish complete control over these territories. We are talking about the villages of Alexeyevka, Yablunovka, and Belovody. This will allow the Russians to cut the main supply line that goes from the city of Sumy towards the village of Yunakivka, which will force the Ukrainians to fall back from this territory in the southern direction. So we see that the Russians are planning to continue offensive operation, and are getting closer and closer to the city of Sumy. As for the Sudzha direction itself, the Russians continue their clearing operation, and today we got lots of very interesting updates. First of all, we have some changes on the ground. According to different neutral mappers, the Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to shorten the lines between the settlement of Basovka and the settlement of Gogolevka. Furthermore, according to information we have, the Russians managed to answer the border crossing checkpoint by the name of Sudzha. We're talking about this area. Basically, the Russians captured this territory, but the sources also reported that there were still several Ukrainian groups, several groups of the armored forces of Ukraine on the territory of the central and the southwestern part of the village of Gogolevka. And now the Russians are saying that Ukrainians lost possibilities to evacuate and to escape encirclement. Currently, according to information we have, the Russians managed to cut and cauldron the armored forces of Ukraine that are currently located on the territory of Gogolevka. We're not talking, of course, about the thousands of Ukrainians, but obviously several hundreds of soldiers could be caught and killed by the Russians by the morning of the 25th of March of 2025. Furthermore, the Russians continue their offensive operation in the vicinity of the settlement by the name of Guyeva and by the name of Milavoy. We have several changes on the ground. The Ukrainian sources published a video on how they were bombing and attacking the forces of Russian army in the vicinity of the village by the name of Milavoy. We have adjusted the map based on geolocation that was provided, and today the Russians began another offensive and assault operation on the settlement by the name of Aleshnya. As for the beginning of the 25th of March of 2025, the Russians finished the artillery preparation. The Russians reduced the settlement to ruins with a significant number of aviation strikes. Maybe upcoming 48 hours are going to be decisive for this small village. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Belgorod direction. According to information we have, the Ukrainians during the previous 12 hours managed to improve their positions and to take the forest to the south of Popovka, the settlement of Popovka, and to the southwest of the village of Demidovka. So this territory was captured by the Ukrainians, and furthermore, during the previous night, the Ukrainians made lots of attempts to enter the village of Popovka itself, and the Ukrainians tried to advance in the direction of Demidovka. The Russian sources reported that during the previous night they were repelling all those attacks, and they managed to defeat the Ukrainians, and by the morning of the 25th of March, the Ukrainians were forced to fall back towards the border once again. So we believe that those attacks were in the last attacks from the Ukrainian side, and this day, on the 25th of March of 2025, the Ukrainians will continue their attempts to take under control all these territories, including the settlement of Grafovka, Demidovka, and the settlement of Popovka. And most likely the Russians would be forced to fall back, because we see how the Ukrainians are increasing their pressure. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the area of the general battle. I'll remind you that several weeks or months ago we talked that most likely this year, the year of 2025, is going to be a year of a general battle between the armored forces of Ukraine and the Russian Federation. And we believe that the general battle would take place between the cities of Pokrovsk, Toretsk, and the city of Konstantinovka, exactly in this pocket. And during the previous 24 hours, the Russians managed to improve their positions. On the other side, the Ukrainians Ukrainians counterattacked and managed to restore control over some territories. The Russians, according to information we have, managed to improve their positions in the southern part of the settlement by the name of Tarasovka, and the Russians continue advancing further in the northern direction with the purpose to seize control over the settlement completely and to reach the road N32 that will allow the Russians to move further along the same road towards the city of Konstantinovka. Furthermore, we got lots of icons, lots of flags from the settlements of Panteleymoniyevka and Alexandropol. Both villages were captured and secured by the Russians according to different sources, according to pro-Ukrainian, pro-Russian and neutral resources. As for now, without any geolocations that can confirm this. So summarizing everything, by the beginning of the 25th of March of 2025, the Russians established complete control over everything that is located inside of this red line. The next target for the Russians is to move further in the direction of Valentiivka and the settlement of Sukhaya Balka. These are the villages we're talking about, and of course the Russians will try to attack this company's stronghold to the west and to attack the village of Stara Mikolaevka and Kalinova from the southeast. So the Russians will try to attack in this area, and most likely we should expect Russian offensive from Zelenopolye towards Alexandropol and then further in the direction of Zarya with the purpose to cut as much as possible Ukrainian forces in this pocket. On the other side, the Ukrainians currently are trying to maintain the gap, to maintain the corridor for evacuation, and during the previous 24 hours, according to different sources, the Ukrainians counter-attacked in the village of Sherbenovka, Novospassky and Leonidovka. Furthermore, the Ukrainians made another counter-attack in the area of the city of Toretsk. Both counter-attacks, according to different mappers, brought some results for the Ukrainians. They managed to improve their positions in the northern part of the city of Toretsk, and basically the Ukrainians managed to restore control over the village of Sherbenovka and Novospassky. So now the Ukrainians managed to maintain the corridor for evacuation and to remove and to probably to ease the news around the Ukrainian positions in this Kleban-Bytska water reservoir pocket. So we see that there are very heavy clashes, and we see that the fighting, both attacks of the Russians and the Ukrainians, will intensify exactly in this direction. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Pokrovsk direction, where the Ukrainians counter-attack, and during the previous 24 hours the Ukrainians managed to improve their position in the village by the name of Salona. This information was provided us by pro-Russian resources and by neutral mappers. So now we see that Ukrainians are about to cut the pocket, are about to cut the salient between the village of Udachno and Kotlin and Vovkovo completely, which will force the Russians sooner or later to retreat or to begin retreating towards Novotroitska and Shevchenka. The situation in this area is very difficult for the Russians. They have just finished the battles for the settlement of Pischan and Shevchenka. The Russians have just finished the maintaining of their positions along the railways, and now we see another Ukraine counterattack, and now the Russians need to redeploy forces from the eastern flank in the western direction with the purpose to stabilize the situation here as well, which will allow the Ukrainians to begin another wave of counterattacks towards both settlements, again towards Shevchenka and towards the settlement of Pischana. So we see that the battles for these territories haven't been finished yet, and we see that the Ukrainians will try to intensify their activities in the very near future. The situation for the Russians here is also very difficult, but as for now they managed to probably fix all issues, but let's see what is going to be next. As for the South Donetsk direction, during the previous 24 hours the Russians managed to shorten the distance towards the village of Rozliv completely as much as possible. This information was provided us by the pro-Ukrainian sources, and furthermore, according to information we have and according to first geolocations, the forces of the armed force of the Russian Federation managed to enter the village of Vilnopolye, and the clashes for this eastern part of the settlement have begun. And that's it for the short video. Military summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.